these findings suggest that there were some certain scenarios where the car might act in a way where the driver couldn't take over fast enough to avoid a crash or potentially break the law. So, fixing this in the software a lot easier than, say, having to bring it into a car dealership like a Chevy would do and have to change mechanical things, have to put in new equipment or something like that. So, kind of in short, kind of a win for Tesla because it doesn't have to turn the system off. It doesn't have to do any mechanical changes, but a black eye because of the system's defaults.
What has Tesla said about the defaults? They agree with the government's assessment of it?
Well, they would disagree. They pushed back on the government with the government's findings, but went forward with the voluntary recall here, which is often the case in these things. When the NHTSA is going to do this, it's either do voluntary or it can become much more messy down the road. So, going back to Tesla traditionally says that these systems are safer than what the human can do. That's, maybe perhaps in debate. Sometimes we don't understand where their data is coming from, but it gets to kind of the core of these systems. Are they about safety or are they about convenience? The criticism continues to be about Tesla and other systems like it, is that the driver thinks the system can do more than it is. It is not fully self-driving. The robot is not in control. The driver needs to be in control, needs to take back that wheel, needs to be engaged in the driving scenario. And oftentimes they get lulled into thinking the car is doing more than it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, he's not actually wrong about that. You have that same kind of issue in aviation where you get lulled into the idea that, autonomy is taking everything over, or you don't have to concentrate on anything. The good news is a lot of us using the autonomy technology today realize in Teslas, we're coming up on, potentially a dicey intersection or an area where I want to pay attention a little bit more and sort of activate your awareness and take over earlier. Look, there's absolutely this argument to be made that if you rely too much on autonomy, all of a sudden your skills start waning and you're not actually able to respond appropriately in situations where it's necessary to take over from autonomy. But what's wild and why Tesla's actually getting all of this crazy coverage right now, I mean, they're still talking about it right here on CNBC. What's wild about this is apparently there was this recall that was issued, and it's literally just a software update, but people are freaking out over this. There's so much press going on over this, and I think it's remarkable. In fact, take a look at this. I got this text message yesterday. It's Friday, which means the flash sale ends tonight. Check it out, a link down below. It says, hey, you might have heard this already, but it's on Channel 7 World News that Tesla is recalling 360,000 vehicles because of the self-driving feature potentially leading to accidents. Just a heads up. And I wrote, terrible recall that requires a horribly intensive automatic software update at night. It's like, it's true. It's like, look, you don't have to take the darned thing in anymore. When I had a Toyota Prius and I had to take the sucker in for service, a pain in the butt. You gotta take the car in after you set an appointment because now they want you to have an appointment. Then you go drop it off and you have to wait in line to talk to the person. And of course, when you go want to just drop off the damn keys, you can't do that because then they want to try to sell you, because that's how dealerships make money. They got to sell you as much freaking service that you don't need as possible. Everything needs service. Every time you go in, there's something they got to sell you on. There's always something they have to sell you on. And you're a loser, is at least the impression, if you don't at least do some of it. Because, hey, we've got this whole list of things that are wrong with your car, but, why don't we just chip away at it and maybe do like a quarter of it now, and we'll save another quarter for next time. So that way you don't feel like a loser. You're still spending probably a quarter more than you should have spent, which should have been zero, right? Like, the old school dealership model is just trash. It's so annoying. It's so inconvenient. And then you got to pick the darn thing up, and then how are you going to get back? Sure, you Uber, but then it's a pain in the butt because you got to wait 20 minutes for the Uber. And you're wasting so much time out of your day to bring a car to a dealership and then go back and get it. Or you're also wasting somebody else's time if they're driving you to drop you off, which then is even more ridiculous because now you're wasting two people's time. Terrible, terrible economic inefficiency. And so you have all of these sort of, like, in my opinion, I'm going to call it what it probably is. Traditional boomers who don't know much about software or have any care to learn about anything Elon Musk touches. And so the thesis is, oh man, the headlines say recall. There we go. We always knew the new stuff was bad. You just can't innovate. Can't have good things. Nope, recalls. That's right. Yep, Tesla. Getting screwed again. It's almost like people get happiness out. It's like, I think it's like a Schadenfreude psychology of Tesla. It's like the old guards kind of like, Elon losing again. Another recall for the Teslas. It's just like so stupid and annoying. It just drives me nuts. But ironically, what's happening now is you have this ironic network effect where the Tesla people are like, you're the idiot who has to take your car into service, whereas we just press update on the car. And in a weird way, it actually has this, like, in my opinion, positive marketing effect. So even though initially it's like, it seems like all this negative press, I really think for Tesla, the argument of no press is bad press is great. I mean, Tesla doesn't have an advertising department because they don't need it. As soon as there's a software update, everybody freaks out calling it a recall. And then what happens? The defenders of Tesla are like, dude, it's a software update. And then people are like, oh, okay, well, I still hate Elon. It's like just so ridiculous. But that's just what's out there. Meanwhile, the Model Y is sold out for Q1. It's the first time these suckers have been sold out, for about 6 months, which is fantastic. Now the Model Y is sold out. They raised the price twice over just the last 6 weeks here after their initial price reductions. And now you also have Tesla having to respond to allegations about them firing people who wanted to form a union in Buffalo, New York. Now, let's be real, and this is just sort of the thesis here. This is like the quiet part that probably shouldn't be spoken out loud. Let's be real. Tesla doesn't want unions, okay? Most modern companies generally don't want unions because ultimately you're trying to automate away your labor anyway, okay? Like that's the long-term goal, right? I mean, think about it. During the pandemic, did we really need 5,000 math teachers teaching calculus on Zoom? Or did we really need one math teacher teaching calculus on Zoom and then 4,999 sort of helpers to help grade papers or whatever, right? Like you put the best teacher on Zoom, they teach it, and everybody else, sort of helps and tutors as is necessary, rather than 5,000 different people trying to put together a Zoom lecture plan, right? So that is innovation that probably you should be seeing in education, but of course that means a lot of people lose their jobs. And so that's bad because people don't want to lose their jobs because then they have to learn something new. And that's very difficult to do, especially when you're in a groove and you're in a habit. And I mean, it's hard to change with the times, right? And I mean, nobody wants to see their job get replaced. That's the reality of it. So unions help protect labor from getting replaced. I kind of think about it like the Industrial Revolution, the Luddites. It's like, oh, we've got machines coming in to sort our cotton. Hell no. Let's go in and destroy the machines at night. And so you've got Luddites destroying machines during the Industrial Revolution because, goodness gracious, what are we going to do if we don't have the manual necessity to actually separate the seeds from the cotton? Why would we let machines do that? They're going to bankrupt us all and we'll be broke and we'll have to learn to do something else. Of course, the goal is, with innovation, you now have the ability to get another job that potentially pays you more money with less time. So for example, if you're making $30,000 a year and then all of a sudden you turn around and you realize, wait a minute, I could do some quality assurance work in a tech job and make twice as much money with half as much time. Well, now I got more money and I got more time to do something else, right? So innovation in a necessary way kind of forces you for a moment to go through a little bit of hardship, but then you end up better. You end up working less and you end up making more money. But unions, of course, and this isn't to just straight up bag on unions, but let's be clear about the incentive of a union. The incentive of a union is to survive. And if the goal of the union is to survive, then it survives more when it has more union members. The last thing a union wants is less union members because then you have less union dues and you have less power. But if union members are getting replaced by robots at Tesla, then the union's obviously going to be pissed about the robots. It's just like the Luddites during the Industrial Revolution. But then what happens when Tesla sort of sees that writing on the wall, or corporations see that writing on the wall, and they're like, well, let's automate as quickly as possible so that we can replace labor before we can't replace labor anymore, because the unions have vesting and mandatory employment and non-fire requirements, pensions and all these liabilities that essentially make companies unable to innovate again in the future. I mean, think about, like, how do you take a legacy company with massive pension liabilities like Ford or GM and turn them into an efficient, new, innovative company? You generally can't. Those companies have to die out. If they have unfunded pension liabilities, then the people end up getting screwed anyway out of their pensions. I mean, obviously there are insurance programs and things like that in place to sort of prevent the defaulting on pensions, because those pension contracts are important, but ultimately it comes down to the company's guarantee, because if the company goes bankrupt, you got big problems. But anyway, long and short of it is, you have a society where the newest breed of companies, dare I say, are relatively anti-union. And one of the reasons they, in my opinion, are anti-union is because they realize in order to stay innovative, they have to be able to have labor flexibility. In other words, they have to be able to kill the need for labor, because labor is, very expensive. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, these labelers in New York were starting to work with a manager of a Starbucks who helped organize the Starbucks union effort. And that Starbucks union person essentially motivated somewhere around 25 people, potentially more, to put together a letter and send it to Elon Musk demanding that Tesla recognize their right to form a union. Now, employers have a choice to recognize a union unless the majority of members of that company, more than 50%, basically vote for the union. Then the company is forced to recognize a union. So in the meantime, while a company is not forced to recognize a union, what happens is you end up getting this place where a lot of companies don't want to. And so what ended up happening is, after roughly about 25 people happened to file a letter saying roses are red, violets are blue, unions start with you, which was also where in the last time I pitched the fact that today is February 17th and there's a coupon code expiring at 11:59 p.m. Actually, it's a flash sale, it's not a coupon. Expiring tonight at 11:59 p.m. for the programs on Building Your Wealth, or the Shadowing Experience, that's linked down below. But anyway, after they sent that, within a day of sending that letter on Valentine's Day, 25 of them got fired. 25, 26 of them got fired. Now, a day after that, which is last night, Tesla responded in response to false allegations. So Tesla now is arguing there's a false allegation that Tesla terminated employees in response to a new union campaign. These are the facts behind the event. And let's just make it clear, okay? Tesla is not going to come out and point blank say, yeah, we don't want unions. But I think I've just made the case that pretty much companies don't want unions. That's obvious. That should be very, very obvious. And so anyway, Tesla, as sort of a CYA, because you kind of have to do this, what do? And of course, I don't know all the details, so this is just my opinion. I could be wrong, but let's just be clear. I mean, Tesla is talking about how they conduct performance reviews and just conveniently, conveniently 4%, roughly 4%. Wait, 4%? That's a little bit more than I thought. There were about 650 labor. Oh, no, that is about right. Yeah, that's 26 employees. Okay. Approximately 4% of the employees on the Autopilot labeling team in Buffalo, New York, which, by the way, I guess the minimum wage for that is like $19 an hour. And you're literally just pushing a button like, yes, no, yes, no. Like labeling what the AI sees is not, it's not that difficult. And so I wish I made $19 an hour when I was, 18 years old or 16 years old making smoothies at Jamba Juice or folding clothes at Hollister that people would just walk in and steal at 16 and making $7 an hour. But whatever. Anyway, so approximately 4% of the employees on the Autopilot labeling team in Buffalo were exited as a result of this performance review cycle. The employees let go as part of this process received prior feedback on their poor performance. So it's kind of interesting. If that's true, then it's really convenient that basically the people who are trying to unionize may have also been the poor performers, which then it kind of makes you wonder, are poor performers people who want to unionize, or do people want to unionize and Tesla's just saying they happen to be performers. It's kind of like a chicken or egg problem, and I'm curious to know what your opinion is, so leave me a comment on that. But Tesla makes the argument, despite feedback, they did not demonstrate sufficient improvement, and as a result, before we even knew about this unionizing effort that was happening, we basically fired 26 people, or warned them that, hey, their performance wasn't up to par, and then after the union effort, the timing just happened to be very coincidental that we just happened to fire everyone involved in the effort right after the union effort began. So really, really convenient for Tesla. You know, maybe what a company should do is just tell everyone that their performance needs to step up. So that way, if at any point they decide to unionize, you could just say, well, yeah, you're fired. And no, you're not fired because you're forming a union. You're fired because we told you to get better and you didn't get better. Yeah, well, you tell everyone to get better. I mean, I don't know, right? Look, whatever it is, I think legal battles, whatever. Legal battles take years. Before you see a union at Tesla, it probably will be 2028 or on. And by then, you then start scratching your head like, okay, are we getting to a top of a growth cycle? Do you potentially then spin off divisions within Tesla to protect it from unionization by spinning off like the robot division from, I don't know, the robo-taxi division, whatever. Do you start spinning these segments off to sort of insulate them from unionization? Who knows? There are plenty of corporate tricks that happen, but yeah, it's awfully convenient that that these folks happen to be exited, which is such a fascinating word, by the way. Like, oh yeah, we don't fire employees, we exit them. Anyway, look, bottom line is generally, and this is opinion here, obviously, but there's plenty of research also supporting this. But generally, the impression is that unionization hurts innovation. That doesn't mean unions are bad. Obviously, it's important that employees are paid appropriately for the value they're providing. I think where unionization becomes problematic is when you end up seeing disruptive unionization, like what you're seeing in the United Kingdom, where you have either teachers' unions or pilot unions or whatever striking and creating more supply chain nightmares, especially in industries where there's already very nominal profit. The airlines are losing money hand over fist. They're highly indebted. They're basically on the brink of either mergers or collapse because they have a very hard time actually surviving thanks to all of what? The labor costs. In fact, you have a lot of institutions today saying stay away from highly labor-intensive businesses because, well, there's more risk. The more labor you have, the more risk there is. And obviously, then if you can have executives who can get a lot done with minimal labor is more ideal. But it doesn't sound like unionization and innovation tend to align very well. And so I think for the purposes of unions, I think they probably have to rebrand their reputation a little bit to make sure that they can actually prove to businesses, hey, look, we actually are pro-innovation. Like, how do you innovate and transform unions from not innovative to innovative, right? That's probably something, if I were, leading a union, I'd be thinking about because I don't think... The common theme today is, unions. I think that's kind of gone by the wayside, mostly, especially for people sort of outside the system. So quite interesting. So let's see. Garrett Hartle here says, unionization didn't hurt the building of America. A lot more of this country used to be unionized. Yeah, I mean, that could be entirely causation without correlation, right? Just because in the mid-19th century, every automaker that existed was unionized doesn't necessarily mean that unionization was good for America, especially given that basically every car company other than Ford, every legacy automaker other than Ford, ended up going bankrupt. Yeah, we could just as easily make the argument that unionization led to the bankruptcy as did not prevent the building of America, right? So I think that's a difficult argument to make without clear statistics. I think this is interesting. Steve makes the argument 100% of poor performers want to unionize. To mooch the system. Poor performers want to unionize, says Alex here. I mean, there's always the possibility of that. Midnight King, email us at kevin@meetkevin.com. We can get you taken care of. But anyway, yeah, I mean, look, obviously there's no real way to I think make the blanket argument and be correct that everyone who wants to be a union sucks or everyone who wants to unionize is great and innovative, right? It's obviously, as with everything, it's a mix of both. I think probably the argument that is often made is that, look, if you're in innovative technologies and ultimately you're trying to replace labor, just by the nature of wanting to innovate and minimize labor, you already stand in the face of what unions stand for. So unions stand for more labor and businesses stand for less labor. So no matter which way you slice it, innovative companies will always be looking for ways to reduce labor and unions will always be looking for ways to increase labor. So from a first principles approach of the purposes of those two entities, one is diametrically opposed to the other. They will always stand in conflict with each other because their mission is exactly the opposite. That makes for a very challenging environment and one that will continuously be litigated forever. So I think really that's probably the only binary conclusion that you can make where it's like, yes, absolutely unions want more labor. Absolutely businesses want less labor. Now, the rest of that, well, that's to be debated. But either way, again, the more Tesla sits in the news, the more Tesla ends up, ironically, selling vehicles. So it's fascinating just to see how Tesla has sort of mastered the world of advertising without advertising. So congratulations, Tesla. Sorry to Charlie Munger. Now, there are also now some rumors going around that Tesla is potentially leaking the Cybertruck body in this right here with Joey 2000, potentially showing this frame over here of the side frame of a vehicle. I'm going to play that again right here, but these are some rumors circulating. So if we move to this next clip right here, this is what some people say would be sort of wheelbay 1, wheelbay 2, Cybertruck side body, Cybertruck frame. Who knows? We know that they've started the process of manufacturing the Cybertruck, and we expect the Cybertruck to actually be available for its initial orders towards the end of 2023, and then more bulk orders in 2024. There are a lot of rumors as well as to what's to happen with Tesla regarding the March 1st Investor Day. A lot of folks believe that Investor Day obviously is going to be about Elon Musk's Master Plan 3. Master Plan 3 is highly rumored to potentially include the announcement of a new vehicle platform. That could be robotaxi, it could be steering wheel-less, maybe it's an optional steering wheel. It could be some grandiose vision about what's to come in years down the road. There are a lot of hopes for that. I don't think whatever we hear on Investor Day is going to be something that practically or meaningfully changes our ability to buy anything from Tesla anytime soon, given that obviously we're still substantially in the ramping phase for the sexy vehicles. That's the S, the Model 3, the X, and the Y. And then, of course, we've got to get Cybertruck up and going. So it's probably still going to be a while. I'm personally a little bit bearish on the event, mostly because I don't like to get my hopes up, and that's not because I'm a pessimist. I think I'm a very optimistic person, but I suppose just in history, whether it's Battery Day or AI Day, the information we end up learning tends to be very nuanced and not very applicable to a large investor base or just sort of a large audience, and tends to be a little bit more arcane, difficult to be understood by many, right? And hopeful for the long-term future, which is fantastic, and those with the interest in that are probably going to love Investor Day. But I think broadly, if folks are betting on some sort of big run after Investor Day in the stock because of what's announced on Investor Day, it's not a bet I would make. I wouldn't necessarily say that I would go in short before, because you just never know, but it's probably not a bet that I would make, just given the history. Who knows? Maybe this time we'll be surprised. My boss thinks I'm stupid that I invest in Tesla. And then Real George here says, mature people just don't want things to change. Well, I find that, remember, your average customer for Tesla is between 25 and 45 years old and is statistically more likely to be a dude. I think that's because they really haven't come out with sort of a mommy-style vehicle yet. Sure, you could claim that the X or Y would work, but once you have two kids and strollers, you need a lot of space. But anyway, yeah, I do find that, at least anecdotally myself, it seems that anyone of the older generations, older than the millennial generation, so we're talking, Gen X, you've got boomer generation, and of course the silent generation, which they don't say much. But anyway, the other two there, you generally seem to have an aversion to what Elon Musk is doing. And I believe that a lot of that aversion to Elon Musk is actually shaped by, I hate to say it because it sounds a little tinfoil hat-esque, but by the mainstream media, because of the headlines that are so negative towards Tesla, that people, and I know this because I try to bridge the gap a little bit. When I get my newspapers, because I actually physically get newspapers, Financial Times, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, the Post is in there, whatever, I get all these. It's very, let's just say it's easy to throw Elon Musk, Tesla, and negativity on the front page, and frequently makes the front page. And I don't think there's much critical thought that often goes on beyond the media narrative, which is not an insult, it's just sort of the way things have been. And it's unfortunate. Definitely is unfortunate. But so it is.